Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we discuss day-to-day problems people face in their lives. Let's start with the video. My older sister and my boyfriend have known each other since school and high school, to be more particular, because he was in the football team and she was in the cheerleading one. And they were both nothing short of attention whores that wanted light shined down them and to captivate everybody's attention. And the brilliance of the two of them got in the way of one another, which led them to have petty beef and exert mildly bullying behavior to one another. One would think that this kind of childish, immature, and irrational behavior would be left in the past, in which they were actually allowed to be childish and immature. But now that they're grown-ups and both in long-term healthy relationships, as well as obliged to tolerate each other, you'd think that they would at least learn how to put it past them. I say they, but really I'm talking about my sister here, because she was the one that decided to keep the grudge against my boyfriend and started out with her disrespectful comments and opposition towards my relationship from the start and from the moment I told her I was going on dates with him, which was kind of strange, but I brushed it off as, like I said, I assumed they were adults and this should be put past them in the blink of an eye. Her snarky comments and high school girl behavior stuck around for a long time, even though it should have been obvious that her focus should have been placed on her long-term relationship that she had already been in when we even started dating, so I thought that it would keep her occupied. But now I was wrong, because apparently she had all the time in the world to dislike my relationship and make it obvious that she couldn't even tolerate it. One of the things that she would do around him was that she would pick these petty fights about food or seating positions around the table or the placement of napkins at family dinners or at my house. Even she did that multiple times because for some reason she still has it in her head that their beef is still going on from high school, which he obviously doesn't give a crap about anymore, because he's dating me by choice and not obligation. And that sadly can't be said about her, because she's only tolerating him out of obligation towards me and not by choice. She'd enter this single-sided arguments by herself, and it would end up with a massive fight that would ruin the quality of whatever we're all present at. Moving on from that, my sister got engaged about a year ago, and I have been nothing but the most supportive version of myself that I can be. I have been very expressive of my joys and congratulations towards her, as any moderately good sister should. On top of being genuinely emotionally invested in the relationship out of love and respect for my sister, I've been very excited about something that my boyfriend and I had come up with to make our experience at my sister's wedding all the more special and memorable. To go wearing subtle but obvious details that contain things that link both of our outfits, because I was going to be maid of honor and he wouldn't really have as big of a role in the ceremonies as I will. So he thought that this was just his way of feeling included and made my boyfriend and I happy and easily wedding excited, and our little girls ecstatic about this upcoming one. Mind you, my sister hadn't mentioned to me, not even once, that my boyfriend wouldn't be able to make it to the wedding when I was gushing to her about the jewelry or the shoes that I was thinking of purchasing to match with him. I was informing her of the ideas that I was getting as soon as I got them, and I don't see a single reason as to why she could have reasoned her keeping the most important detail about her wedding that concerned me from me. 2 weeks prior to the wedding, when I had literally already showed her both my boyfriend and I's outfits and how we would be matching at her wedding, she told me that there had been a last-minute decision that her and her fiancé had to come to due to budget issues. That meant that no plus ones would be allowed, which would be inconvenient because the invitation letters had already been mailed out over 3 or 4 weeks ago. But I didn't really disturb it much because I knew that my sister and her fiancé weren't doing the best when it comes to finances and were actually struggling, and I wasn't about to put pressure on her or make her feel like her wedding was going to be any less of a wedding because she has a lower budget for the sake of catering and ensuring her honeymoon quality is better than the wedding she offers to a bunch of people that gather around for one evening and then go home. As much as it broke my heart to watch as my boyfriend's expression and excitement died out, when I told him that he won't be able to attend the wedding since his presence at it wasn't because of he was sent an invite, but because he was going to be my plus one, which was already messed up enough. But I told him that our own wedding would be the ultimate compensation for everything, and basically felt like I was wiping away the tears of a child who just had his puppy put down. I told him that our wedding would be much better for us to actually shine properly and do whatever ridiculous, stupid, meticulous little tricks we wanted with it. I now know that my sister will either not be attending my wedding or that her husband will absolutely not be doing so, because the moment I got to the wedding, I realized that there was no budget problem, or at least if there was one, there were no cuts of plus ones to the wedding to cover it up, because there were plenty of plus ones that weren't even as close as my boyfriend should have been considered to the bride and groom. Even my cousin, who brought her girlfriend to the wedding against literally everybody's wishes, seeing that my sister is quite bigoted and homophobic, ended up showing up with her girlfriend, and her arm looking as glamorous as ever and as happy as could be, while I sat in the back, resisting the urge to cry my way out of that goddamn church and cry out the crappiness of what my sister had made me feel. I'm not sure if the intensity of my emotions that evening were because I was so distraught by the fact that my sister had literally lied to me and altered the rules to her supposed wedding invitation just so my boyfriend wouldn't show up because she thinks she has some sort of beef with him from high school, or if it was the fact that I was experiencing the effects of hormonal change that pregnancy had implemented on me. I actually stood up and requested to say toast, which I could see my sister readying herself up to get scolded into non-existence. But I informed everyone that I was expecting and that my boyfriend and I decided to keep the baby and we were going to raise and love and care for her or him away from all the harm and emotional damage that the world has to be prepared for our baby. Specifically making sure to make eye contact when I was talking about emotional distress and feeling excluded. I finished it off by saying that I apologized for my boyfriend not being able to make it for the wedding because there had been a change of events that happened in the background of the wedding, which ultimately led to him not being able to attend that night, and that we would most certainly be making it up to the couple somewhere along the line, aka my wedding. And I guess my sister knew immediately what I intended with those words. I'm not sure if I can say that my sister knew me enough to understand that I would literally be excluding her from my baby's life, and though that made me feel a little guilty because I kind of ruined the quality of her wedding, but I could see the change in her expression and kind of sense the sadness in her voice when she was talking to me and apologizing to me through her eyes, which pissed me off even more because, bitch, if you messed up, why the hell are you so terrified of apologizing? Not the a-hole. Your sister and her boyfriend or husband or whatever don't seem like the kind of people I would want around my baby anyway. So I don't see any reason for you to be the bad guy here. You having a reaction that's equal to the damage that their actions did sounds just about fair to me. Not the a-hole. Why the hell are you worried about her emotions being damaged if you're the one choosing to keep away something you love from her, just like she kept away some things she loved from you? I guess you could claim the upper hand and let this slide under the rug. But it seems like that's what you've been doing this whole time, and it's really proving to be no avail, so why keep doing it? Not the a-hole. If I had to guess, I would say that she was probably actually slightly hurt by the fact that you were insinuating that you would be treating her the way she treated you. But she would have had to know that lying to your face just so you wouldn't bring your boyfriend because she had stupid high school petty beef with him would have its repercussions in the future. So I don't see why you should feel guilty for making her feel slightly bad for doing something horrible. Next story. I, 28 male, have 3 children, 1 from a previous relationship, 11 male, and 2 with my wife, 28 female. I work in arena marketing and promotions, and because our youngest is currently too young to be enrolled in school, I take as much work home as possible. But due to the nature of my job, sometimes I need to meet with clients and show them available spaces or equipment. My wife doesn't work, she's a full-time carer for her mother, but she usually comes home for her lunch. So I try to schedule as many of these meetings as possible for this time. On this particular occasion, my middle child, 7 male, was also home because he was too unwell to go to school. I had a meeting arranged at an events hall with a family looking to hold a fundraiser. My wife was aware of this. She assured me that she would return home at her usual time to watch the kids while I go to work. When she did not arrive on time, I waited a further 15 minutes and tried to call her, but it kept going to voicemail. I told my son that I'd be back soon and left for my meeting. I was slightly late, but fortunately, the meeting didn't run over. I couldn't have been out of the house for much longer than 60 or 70 minutes. When I returned home, my wife was furious. She had rung the house phone after her phone died, and our son told her that I had left them home alone. I explained that she was the one who hadn't turned up. It was only for an hour and they were perfectly safe, but she is convinced that I'm an a-hole. She told me that she was late because her mother's health took a turn, so she needed to call for assistance and her phone went to voicemail because she was on the phone with the hospital. She also accused me of caring about my job more than my children, which isn't true, but it was important that I attended this meeting. I do not think our children are as helpless as she considers them, and I did not know the reason she was late and had expected her to arrive shortly. Regardless, nothing happened to the children and I was not gone for long. Am I the ace? Edit. Sorry I was unclear. A. Children are 11, 7, and 2. B. 11-year-old was at school. C. I have full custody. Mother isn't involved in his life. D. You do not know me. You have read one Reddit post about my life and do not get to make a holistic judgment about me as a father, husband, or person. I will not engage with anyone else who does this because it is effing ridiculous that you think you can. E. I never expected 7-year-old to care for a 2-year-old. 2-year-old was napping and I genuinely thought my wife was on the way. F. He had a headache and was too grumpy to go to school. He wasn't dying of the plague. You're the a-hole. Holy crap, man. Sometimes there's an emergency and you have to miss a meeting. It happens. What's particularly gross here is you seem to like you assumed your wife was just not showing up for fun instead of, I don't know, worrying something was wrong. You quite literally decided your job, not even your whole job, just this one meeting, was more important than your kids. You're the a-hole. You left a 7-year-old alone. This isn't the same as leaving a 15-year-old home who can fend for themselves. Your son could have gotten seriously hurt, went outside and got lost, had a medical issue, choking, he was sick, so other medical emergencies, etc. Started a fire and various other things. Also, if at any point the police showed up, they would have taken your child because he is too young to be alone. Again, this isn't like leaving a 15-year-old home alone. Your client is an adult and could have rescheduled, unlike your 7-year-old. Edit. You're even more the a-hole as you left a 2-year-old to be supervised by a 7-year-old. You're extremely lucky nothing bad happened in that hour you were gone. You're the a-hole. You're the biggest a-hole I have ever seen on here, and I've been on this sub a fair while. It doesn't matter how long you were gone for. You left your children home alone, and a sick one at that. Any number of terrible things could have happened to them. And for what? A meeting? You are a parent, so that means your number one responsibility is to your children, not your job. You need to have a long, hard look in the mirror because you are a neglectful and irresponsible a-hole. I'd call you worse, but it's not worth getting reported over you. Next story. I have a daughter, Emily, 16 female, with my ex. She chose to live with my ex and his wife and kids the majority of the time because she has to share a room with her stepsister, Laura, 15, at my house. My ex gives Emily $25 a week to buy lunch. Emily and Laura's school is down the street from a lot of restaurants, so instead of buying school lunches, she leaves campus to buy herself and her friends lunch. The problem is she sees Laura at school and won't get her anything even though she gets her friends lunch all the time. I talked to Emily about this and she said it's because her friends pay her back and Laura can't. Emily knows we can't afford to give Laura that kind of money, and I know she works part-time and gets an extra allowance from her dad. So I asked her to occasionally buy Laura lunch to make her feel better. She refused. I called her dad and hoped that as a parent he'd understand what I was trying to do. But he said Laura's feelings are not his or Emily's responsibility, and that if she wants to buy lunch off campus, she should get a part-time job like Emily. I tried to explain that Laura is in sports and she has ADHD and depression, so it would be hard for her to work, but he said that's my and my husband's problem and hung up. Laura came home crying the other day because Emily came back with food from her favorite restaurant and didn't give her anything or offer to share. So I called my ex and told him that he needs to stop giving Emily lunch money and have her make her own lunches because she was hurting Laura. He refused to listen to me and told Emily that I'm telling him to not let her go out to lunch because of Laura, and Emily hasn't spoken to me except to say that she's going to stay at her dad's full-time for a while. You're the a-hole. Laura is going to have to learn life isn't fair. Emily works, Laura doesn't. $25 allowance is nothing. It is her job that gives her the most disposable income. You can use Laura's depression and ADHD as an excuse now, but what happens when she's an adult and has to support herself? Should Emily forego a nice car, beautiful home, and vacations because Laura can't afford it? You should concentrate more on getting Laura whatever therapy and medication she needs to get better. The answer isn't making Emily suffer because Laura is jealous. You're the a-hole. Your ex should not be paying for your stepdaughter's lunch. Your daughter should not be paying for your stepdaughter's lunch. She is not responsible for the happiness of other people. If you want Laura to be able to get lunch, then you and her parents need to find a way to pay for it, or for her to pay for it. And if you can't, then you need to teach her to handle her jealousy in a healthy way instead of trying to take things off other people to please her.